you ever loved someone so deeply that you started losing yourself in the process? What if I told you a sum of what we call love is actually control? It doesn't appear as chains or commands. Sometimes it's whispered in a soft tone. You're my everything. Or where were you? We mistake intensity for intimacy, but there's a boundary between being loved and being owned. This is the dark frame, where love and control intersect in the shadows. Today's episode dives deep into one of the most dangerous dynamics in relationships, when love feels like freedom, but it's actually a cage. We're not here to blame anyone. We're here to shed light on how seemingly beautiful love can strip you of your voice, your identity, your freedom. By the end of this video, you'll be able to 1. Spot the subtle line between love and control. 2. Understand the psychological roots of codependency and trauma bonding. 3. Rebuild your boundaries and reclaim your authentic self. What if control didn't look like shouting, but like silence? What if manipulation didn't come with anger, but with guilt? What if the person who says I love you is the same one making you feel unsafe, unheard, and invisible? Vivian met Jim at a coffee shop. He was quiet, intelligent, and said all the right things. I like women who are soft, who don't make drama, he smiled. At first, she thought it was romantic. But weeks later, she found herself apologizing for simply being sad. He never yelled. He never hit her. But every time she expressed discomfort, he'd go cold, silent, distant. I just need space, he'd say. And she would panic, trying to earn his warmth back. Control doesn't always come with threats. Sometimes it comes with rewards, conditional ones. You learn to behave a certain way, to avoid emotional punishment. The red flags don't always scream. Some of them whisper. They sound like, I don't like when you post photos like that. You're too sensitive. I was joking. If you loved me, you'd stay. Real love allows space. Control creates obedience. If you constantly feel small, confused, and guilty in love, it might not be love. It might be programming. Have you ever asked yourself, if I know it's not healthy, why can't I leave? Why do smart, strong people stay in relationships that drain them? Because most toxic bonds don't trap you with chains. They trap you with hope, with guilt, with the illusion that things will get better. It's not your weakness that keeps you there. It's your humanity. There's a reason we call them psychological traps. They're not obvious. They work in silence. They're coded into your deepest emotional instincts. This chapter is not about blaming yourself. It's about seeing clearly what was designed to keep you confused. We'll break down the 5 emotional traps that keep you stuck, how your brain rewires under manipulation, and why even pain can start to feel like home. Because the most powerful form of control is the kind that feels like love. Jack's girlfriend often criticized his tone. If he sounded too serious, why are you so cold? If he was too emotional, why are you being dramatic? He found himself apologizing all the time, not because he was wrong, but because she felt hurt. Over time, he learned to associate her pain with his fault. This is guilt reversal. Manipulators flip the script so thoroughly that you become their emotional caretaker. Even when they hurt you, you end up comforting them. This psychological reversal erodes self-trust. You stop asking, am I okay? And start asking, is she okay with me? That shift is the trap. Jason once dated someone physically abusive. So when his new girlfriend only yelled and insulted him, he thought, at least she doesn't hit me. That's relative distortion. You compare your pain to something worse and convince yourself it's not that bad, but just because something is less toxic doesn't mean it's healthy. This trap thrives on past trauma. It lowers the bar for what's acceptable. Jason's brain adjusted to the abuse and mistook less harm for love. That's how manipulation survives, by hiding in contrast. These traps don't bind your body. They bind your beliefs. They work because they mimic your deepest emotional wiring. Hope hooking hijacks your need for connection. Guilt reversal exploits your empathy. Sunk cost tricks your logical mind. Comparison distortion numbs your pain. Identity traps turn love into dependency. So how do you escape? Not by force, not overnight, but by waking up point one layer at a time. One, name the pattern. If you can name it, you stop normalizing it. Two, track your feelings, not their actions. Forget whether they mean well. How do you feel after interactions? Confused? Small? Drained? That's your compass. Three, reconnect with your before self. Who were you before this relationship? Pull that person back into focus. Four, stop negotiating your reality. If you keep needing to explain your boundaries, they're not being respected. Five, build mirrors outside the bond. Talk to trusted friends, therapists, right? Gaslighting shrinks in the presence of truth. Healing begins not with answers, but with clarity. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to recognize you're not crazy. You're not weak. You're waking up. And that's where power begins. You miss them when they're gone. You crave their attention. You forgive things you once swore you'd never accept. Is it love or addiction? Because sometimes the most intense relationships aren't built on romance. They're built on emotional chaos. You weren't drawn to their kindness. You were hooked by their inconsistency. And what kept you coming back wasn't the joy. It was the withdrawal. Trauma bonding feels like love because your nervous system can't tell the difference. But this is not your fault. It's a brain-wired survival loop. And the more chaos they create, the more you mistake it for connection. In this section, we'll uncover why pain can feel like passion, how trauma bonding literally rewires your brain, and how to break the cycle without shame. Because once you see the pattern clearly, it loses its power. Leo left his toxic partner 2 months ago. He blocked her. He saw a therapist. He started healing. But then she called from a new number. Just seeing her name made his hands shake. He felt it before he thought it. His chest tightened. His stomach flipped. Why? Because trauma bonds live in the body, not just the brain. Your nervous system remembers chaos and associates it with love. So even when you know they're bad for you, your body still reacts like they're your oxygen. You don't miss the person. You miss the chemical spike. It's addiction wrapped in nostalgia. Jia believes she could fix him. She thought he lashes out because he's been hurt. Maybe if I love him right, he'll heal. Every time he softened, she felt like she was getting through. But love didn't heal him. It exhausted her. This is fixer syndrome, a form of trauma bonding. You stay because you feel needed. You stay because leaving feels like abandoning them. But here's the truth. Your love can't undo someone's inner war, and their healing is not your responsibility. When love becomes a rescue mission, you lose yourself. Trauma bonding is not about weak will. It's about chemistry. Here's what happens. 1. They cause stress. Your brain releases cortisol. 2. Then they give relief. Your brain releases dopamine. 3. That contrast creates a powerful emotional imprint. Now your brain associates them with both pain and pleasure. And unpredictability, silence, tension, affection, apology makes the bond even stronger. This is called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same trick casinos use to keep people gambling. It makes your brain obsessed with chasing the high again, even if it means tolerating pain to get there. Trauma bonds feel intense, but intensity is not intimacy. They mimic passion, but are built on survival fear. It feels deep because you've seen their broken side. You've felt like their savior. You've endured so much that it must mean something. But enduring suffering doesn't equal love. Sometimes it just means you've been conditioned to confuse chaos for closeness, to feel panic when it's quiet, to mistake adrenaline for affection. But real love doesn't spike your heart rate. It slows it down. Real love feels safe, steady, peaceful. It doesn't feel like a high. It feels like home. You can't break a trauma bond by just deciding to let go. You have to 1. Detox your nervous system. 2. Rewire your reward system. 3. Rebuild your sense of safety. Here's how to start. Go no contact or minimum contact. Every message reactivates the loop. Label the cycle. Write it down. Name each phase. Track your triggers. And remind yourself pain is not equal to love. Get support from people outside the bond. Borrow their clarity. Grieve the illusion. Not who they were, but who you hope they become. Recovery isn't linear. You'll miss them. You'll doubt yourself. But keep going. Every time you resist the urge to go back, you're rebuilding your brain. You're not losing love. You're regaining yourself. They said you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too needy, too much, but you weren't. You were reacting to chaos. You were protecting your heart. You were surviving. And the voice in your head that tells you, you're hard to love, that wasn't yours. It was planted by someone who broke you, then made you believe the cracks were your fault. But you are not who they said you were. You are not broken. You are not difficult. You are not unworthy. You are healing. And in this final chapter, we'll show you how your identity was shaped by trauma, how to rediscover your voice, and how to become the version of you who never needed their approval in the first place. When you live in emotional war zones, you don't grow, you adapt. You stop asking for too much. You stop crying too loudly. You learn how to read moods before words. You shrink. You became the peacekeeper, the caretaker, the chill one, the fixer, the invisible one. Not because that's who you are, but because that's what felt safe. You weren't weak. You were strategic. But survival mode isn't living. And now it's time to remember who you were before you learned to be small. Maybe they interrupted you, laughed at you, dismissed you, yelled until you stopped speaking. So you stopped sharing, stopped trusting your thoughts, started apologizing for simply existing. That wasn't you. That was survival. But your voice, it's still there. It's in the parts of you that still dream, still cry during music, still whisper there's more than this. Your truth didn't die. It was just waiting for a safer place to speak again. You were never too much. You were just with people who were too little. You were never unworthy. You were just convinced to doubt your worth. And every crack in your heart, let the light in. Yes, you were wounded, but you also survived. And survival is not shameful. It's sacred. You were broken open, not broken apart. Now, healing is not about going back. It's about rising forward. When you stop chasing their approval, you begin hearing your own. Ask yourself, who am I when I'm not performing? What do I love when no one's watching? What do I need that I was never allowed to ask for? Your life doesn't have to be a reaction to pain anymore. You get to choose your identity, not as a trauma survivor, but as a whole, beautiful, growing human who no longer needs to earn love by bleeding. You may never get the apology. They may never change. You may never know why they hurt you. But here's what you do get. You get to stop repeating the pattern. You get to show up for the child in you who waited for rescue. You get to become the love you never received. Every time you set a boundary, you're reparenting yourself. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you're loving the parts they rejected. Every time you say, I am enough, you're undoing their voice, word by word. You don't just heal. You rewrite your entire story. You are not your trauma. You are not their version of you. You are the one who felt deeply, loved even when it hurt, broke the cycle, chose healing. You are soft, but not weak. You are kind, but not naive. You are whole, even with your scars. This is your rebirth, not as someone who was too much, but as someone who was always just enough. You are not who they said you were. You are who you decide to become.